and now I'm going to broadcast, which will start letting people in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to those who have joined already. Just give it a few more moments just to make sure everybody can come into the room. Hi again, for those that have just joined us. We'll be starting very shortly. I'm just making sure that everyone is able to join. So we'll give it a couple of more minutes and then we will be starting. Right, let us make a start, shall we? Firstly, very warm welcome to the GCRF AgriFood Africa programme. This is a week-long series of events that we're sharing over YouTube and via Zoom, and we are really much looking forward to it. We started off this morning, had a great session, and we've got activities every morning and most afternoons for you to participate in. So you're very welcome here, and we're delighted that you can join us. Let me just run through a couple of things I would like to mention, just so you're aware of. Firstly, my name's Tim Messeder, and I work on this programme together with some of my colleagues, and we're sort of delivering this week and the following weeks for the programme. These presentations that you're going to hear today, they've all been pre-recorded just to ensure that we didn't have any technical hiccups, and especially as we are working across continents, that's quite an important thing for us to do. So that's how we're delivering the presentations, but we are going to do live question and answer sessions at the end of the presentations. So if you do have questions, we would love to hear them. The best way to get them to us is just to type them into the question and answer section of the Zoom. If you have any problems, you can send us an email and we can sort of help you with that, but that's how we're going to do questions. If you have any questions about the week, any other issues, do feel free to send us an email. The email address will be in the chat and you can respond to that if you need to. The other thing to mention is we do have a hashtag, and if you wanted to talk about the week, you're very welcome to do that on Twitter. You can use the hashtag AgriFoodAfrica, and that will sort of link to this program events and the wider program as a whole, so you feel free to use that. I want to encourage you during this week to network and to collaborate and to sort of get in touch with each other. The way that you can do that is through the program of events that we have. We have a couple of official networking slots. You will have been, if you signed up for those on the week's programs, you will have been sent a link to Meeting Mojo. Please can I ask you to fill in your profiles and to create that account if you like. That will give you the option to connect and schedule meetings with each other. So please do that. One last thing to mention is the pitching competition, which we have on Wednesday and Thursday. That's an opportunity for you to address the members of this network directly. And by doing so, you'll probably further your chances of finding a successful partner, collaborative partner. So I'd encourage you to do that. And the deadline for that is tomorrow, so you need to get a move on. It's only a 2 minute recording we're asking for. It's very short, but it'll be great to have as many as possible. Okay, let me go through today's meeting and what we're going to achieve. So we're looking today at the opportunities for funding that this program has got. And we're going to be looking at 3 speakers. We have Debbie Tully and Ben, who are sort of doing one slot. They're to be talking about the Innovation Awards round of funding, so we'll hear from them first. And then we have Kathryn Miller, who works from Innovate UK, and she'll be talking about the AgriTech Catalyst round 10. And then lastly, we will have Richard Lamb, who works for Innovate UK as well, and he'll be delivering on the knowledge transfer partnerships. So after we've had those presentations, we'll have a short time for question and answers. Again, you can type into the chat and interact with it that way. So without further ado, I'll just start the presentations.
Good morning, my name is Debbie Tully and I'm a Knowledge Transfer Manager in the Agri-Food team here at KTN. Today I'm going to run through some detail on the GCRF AgriFood Africa Innovation Awards. In total, and as part of the GCRF AgriFood Africa project, we have £800,000 to support up to 20 project awards. These awards are to encourage collaboration between the UK and Africa and are pump priming, so the aim being for the successful projects to go into bigger funding applications in the future. And specifically, there must be a UK research partner, so a university or a research technology organisation, and an African partner, an industry partner, although some RTOs will be eligible. And importantly, the focus is to address key agri-food challenges in Africa. So the type of research these awards are encouraging are feasibility studies, industrial research studies, projects that focus on improving adoption or investment of technologies, products and services in the African agricultural sector. So round 1 has taken place and was announced as the GCRF AgriFood Africa project began back in December 2019. We received 34 applications in total and 13 grants were awarded at £40,000 each. The time parameters have changed slightly. This is in light of the COVID situation with some understandable delays. However, we do anticipate that all projects will complete by the end of November 2021. And at the core, these projects align with ODA guidelines and look to encourage economic development and welfare in Africa. Just to elaborate a wee bit more on the scope for these awards, we were looking for projects that address challenges in primary crop and livestock production, including aquaculture. Looking at projects which could improve the availability, the yield and supply of safe and nutritious foods, and support challenges on the logistical side of things, and importantly help add value wherever possible throughout the supply chain. And here are the 13 successful projects from round 1. A balanced portfolio addressing some major environmental, economical and sustainability challenges that are out there. We will shortly be hearing from one of the projects on their progress today. So the good news is we will be announcing the Innovation Awards round 2 later this year. The scope and eligibility will be similar to round 1, and currently we're looking to fund up to 8 projects at £40,000 each. Within the £40,000, there will be £5,000 ring-fenced, and that is for travel to and from Africa. I have included the link if you would like more information on the awards. And an email address. If you have any questions at all that you would like to direct to us, please do so. We're very happy to help. That's pretty much it from myself. I'm now going to introduce you to Ben Bennett from the Greenwich University, who is going to share detail on his project and progress from round 1. And I'll leave you there. Thank you very much for your time.
Hi everybody, my name is Professor Ben Bennett. I'm Deputy Director of the Natural Resources Institute at the University of Greenwich, and I'm the PI for the project Cassava Bags for Improved Gari Making Efficiency, CB4G. And this is our short progress report on the project as far as we have got so far. So those of you that don't know what cassava is there anybody out there that doesn't know what cassava is? I'd be very surprised. The lady here is carrying a big pile of heavy, wet cassava roots on her head. Cassava is a crucial staple food ingredient across the central humid belt, particularly of Africa, but especially in Nigeria. And gari is the fermented and dried and roasted instant porridge products that you see being made by the lady in the bottom left. This project aims to try to improve the efficiency of gari making using the fresh cassava you saw in the picture on the previous page. In West Africa particularly, where gari is a staple food for hundreds of thousands of people. And there are, traditionally it's made by small-scale gari makers who are almost university women and who run very small businesses like the one you've just seen, roasting gari. They buy in fresh gari and they sell, they buy in fresh cassava and they sell gari. So the challenge that they face is, if you look at the picture on the right, that is a piece of cassava root that started to have post-harvest physical deterioration. So within 72 hours of pulling cassava out of the ground, it's turned into this rather unpleasant, mushy-like substance. The wild cassava's got very many advantages. One of its drawbacks is it's got a very short shelf life. So our plan is to try to work with gari making SMEs to re-engineer the supply of fresh cassava into their system using a polypropylene bag approach, which we've been developing for the last couple of years under a grant from the Rockefeller Foundation. This polypropylene bag is called Cassava Bag. We've proved that it works at a half-ton scale, and we think it can be engineered to work for small gari processors to increase the shelf life of fresh cassava and allow them to stock cassava for up to 8 days. And we think this might give them a better return on the cassava that they buy, because you retain more starch if you can store it without deterioration, but it also will allow better management of the supply chains of their business. So that's those premises behind this project. The partnership consists of the Natural Resources Institute, which is part of the University of Greenwich in the UK, and the University of Agriculture in Abeokuta, Funab in southeast Nigeria, and Benue State University, which is in the south central to western bit of Nigeria. Gari producer groups, some of which we've already identified, some of which we need to identify, and a bag making company who's been working with us on the larger. So where is the project? The Natural Resources Institute is based in the Medway campus in Kent, in the southeast of England. Funab is in Abeokuta, which is in the southeast, down near towards Lagos. And Benue State University is in Makurdi, all the way over here towards the southeast, south central east, shall we say, of Nigeria. And these partners have been chosen because they sit squarely in what you might call the gari belt of southern Nigeria, where there are tens of millions of gari consumers and hundreds of thousands of gari makers. So these dark red areas on this map are areas of concentration of both production and demand for gari, and our two areas for developing a gari network are. So what's the concept? As I said, gari roots deteriorate after 72 hours, whereas the bag extends their shelf life from 72 hours to 8 days. The bag convinces the roots that you see this lady carrying on the left-hand side that they're still in the ground by increasing the temptation in the temperature and humidity around the root. So instead of deteriorating, or the chemistry of deterioration starting, it stays relatively dormant for 8 days and then starts to deteriorate. Almost universally across Africa, Gary is a cottage industry. There are a few larger companies emerging, but I would say 99% of Gary is made by people like the picture you saw at the beginning, individuals or groups of individuals who roast, process and roast Gary, and then sell it on to Gary middlemen who take it to big cities. So our argument is that if I'm a Gary maker and I can buy in fresh cassava in larger quantity, I'll get it at a better price, and I'll be able to store it if I don't use it and keep it until the next day or the day after that. And we also have evidence that by using the technology, stored cassava keeps its starch for longer. And if you have a higher starch level in cassava, you get more Gary per kilogram of fresh root. So that ratio between fresh root in and Gary out is very important to the bottom line of. So the deliverables in this project were a scoping of Gary making business models in the target area, and to develop a new business model based on the smaller cassava bag, to set up prototype, drawing on the cassava bag for a new Gary cassava bag product, and to develop a consortium around bringing that product to the market along with a bag maker. But to do that, we need to start to build a network of Gary making SMEs who can trial and test the new bag technology and optimize it. We also included in this relatively small project certain amount of effort to do field trials, and we wanted to gather all these people together in a symposium with all the different stakeholders to try to understand the various moving parts of a Gary maker's cassava bag, and to build out of that a new cassava bag network who could provide enough demand to make it interesting for the bag maker to start commercially. So that's what it's all about. So progress to date, we signed up our partners. We've been developing the research questions and the fieldwork plans, but we haven't been able to have the kickoff meetings because our partners are in universities and they've got some similar challenges to ours with the shutdown. We're about to have the virtual kickoff meeting, but we can't do the field work because it's simply not safe in Nigeria, and it won't be safe in Nigeria for quite a long time. So it's likely now that this field work is probably going to be in 2021. We are trying to get master's students to help us initiate some of the work, but of course there's a moral challenge that if we can't go to the field, then we shouldn't be asking other colleagues in other countries to go to the field for us. So that's our very quick 10-minute run through our progress to date. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Debbie and Ben. Great to hear how the innovation awards are working in practice on the ground, and it's exciting to find out that they're going to be another round of funding for the end of the year, so we look forward to hearing those details. We're now going to hear from Kathryn Miller, who is going to be talking about the AgriTech Catalyst Round 10. And we're very much looking forward to this, I'm sure, and we've got some questions. Over to you, Kathryn.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this presentation on the AgriTech Catalyst. I'm Kathryn Miller, and I'm Innovation Lead for Food and Nutrition at Innovate UK. The UK government's AgriTech strategy was launched in 2013 with the aims of improving the translation of research into practical application for agriculture and related industries in the UK and overseas. This was an investment of £160 million, which funded 4 AgriTech Centres for Innovation and the AgriTech Catalyst. This was looking at funding translational research, and it also included funding from the Department for International Development to fund projects related to international development. The government investment in the AgriTech Catalyst was a total of £70 million. The Catalyst has funded over 150 projects to date, and these are industry and research collaborative projects to improve the translation of research into those practical applications. £10 million of this £70 million was from the Department for International Development, and a further £10 million has also been received since then to fund further projects since 2018. DFID has funded the AgriTech Catalyst since 2013 across 9 competition rounds to fund projects for UK organisations to work with organisations in developing countries. And since round 7, the focus has been on Africa. 58 projects have been funded, 53 of those in Africa, and this has delivered over £20 million worth of grant funding across 13 African countries. Round 9 projects haven't been announced yet, but will fund a further 13 projects and provide an additional £6 million worth of funding. The scope of the AgriTech Catalyst is broad. Projects must show the potential to deliver impact in Africa through the uptake of agricultural and food systems technology and innovation. The scope of the Catalyst covers primary crop and livestock production and aquaculture, non-food uses of crops, challenges in downstream food processing, distribution, and also storage and value addition, and improving the availability and accessibility of safe, healthy and nutritious foods. The funding for the AgriTech Catalyst is Official Development Assistance, or ODA funding, and this is defined as funding that flows to countries and territories on the DAC list of ODA recipients. Only research directly and primarily relevant to the problems of developing countries can be counted as ODA funding. And because of that, ODA eligibility is a key component of the assessment process, and you will be asked questions on this in your application. The applications must clearly demonstrate how you propose to work on the project and how it will benefit agriculture and food systems in Africa, and how you will deliver this benefit. There can be benefits to the UK as secondary benefits, so for example for UK companies and researchers, but it has to be secondary in nature. And also any activities carried out within the project must be clearly to address the challenges in Africa and not for the UK market. So here are some examples of projects, the types of projects that we funded through the AgriTech Catalyst so far. So of the 58 projects we funded through the AgriTech Catalyst, the scope has been very broad, covering research and innovation in agriculture, food systems and nutrition. Projects are focused on things like control of crop pests and disease, adding value to waste, reducing food losses in the supply chain and improving food safety. We've also funded projects looking at non-food uses of crops, improving productivity for smallholder farmers and to tackle livestock disease, for example, vaccinations. This shows the key points around the eligibility criteria. So all projects must be collaborative. They must include a partner from an eligible African country and from the UK. Early stage and mid-stage projects as a minimum must include one business, either from the UK or from one of the African countries that are eligible. For late stage projects, they must include at least 2 businesses, one African and one from the UK. Projects are carried out using a hub and spoke model, so you must have a UK-based administrative lead who will claim the funds for all partners and then distribute as needed. Project work must be carried out in the UK or in the African country or in both. And as I said, you must include at least one business in the consortium for early and mid-stage and 2 for late stage. Project costs vary depending on the stage of research. So early stage feasibility projects can be from £100,000 to £500,000 in size and last from 12 to 18 months. Mid-stage industrial research can be from £250,000 to £1 million projects and last up to 3 years, and late-stage experimental development projects can be £150,000 up to £800,000 and last up to 18 months. And projects should start by the 1st of April. This slide just shows you the eligible countries. So not every African country is eligible for funding, but if you have a look at that list there, those countries are eligible. If you're not on that list, then you can still participate in a project, but you cannot apply for funding through the competition. The amount of grant that you're able to claim for your project depends on the size of your business and the stage your research is at. So for early stage feasibility studies and industrial research awards, you could get up to 70% of your eligible project costs if you're a micro or small business. And the grant rates decrease the larger your business is. So for a large business, you would be eligible for 50% of your costs. For experimental development projects, which are nearer to market, you could get up to 45% of eligible costs if you are a micro or small business, and that rate goes down to 25% if you're a large business. And the grant rates are the same for UK and African businesses. Research organisations can participate in early and mid-stage projects, and research organisations can claim 100% of their costs for participation in these. UK universities can claim 100%, which is 80% of full economic costs, and African universities can claim 100% of their project costs. However, the total cost for your research partners must not exceed 50% of the total project costs. If your consortium contains more than one research organisation, this maximum of 50% will be shared between them. For late-stage experimental development projects, research-based partners cannot claim funding but can participate as subcontractors. And public sector organisations and charities can claim 100% of their project costs. I'm going to very briefly cover the application process for those of you who haven't applied for funding through this route previously, but there will be a separate webinar nearer the open date of the competition, which will go through this in a lot more detail, so I'd urge you to watch that nearer the time. We have an online service known as the Innovation Funding Service, or IFS, where you can apply for funding. You'll be asked to provide information on the application team, so who are the partners involved in the project. The lead will be able to invite collaborators to add information to the application, and you'll also be able to invite colleagues from your own organisation to help you complete it. You'll be asked application details, for example, the research category you're applying for, innovation area, and the title and the length of your project. You'll be asked to provide a short summary and also provide a public description, and this is published if you are successful. And the scope of the project, you need to explain how your project aligns with the scope of the competition. And if it's not in line with the competition scope, then your project will not be assessed. You will then be asked 11 questions about your project. And this covers a range of areas, including the business opportunity, what project results you'd expect to see, technical approach and the innovation, any risks that you foresee and the project team, and some other areas. Two main areas of focus are around official development assistance and the International Development Act. So asking you how your project fits with both of these. As a summary, this just gives you the key information for the competition. So £2 to £3 million is likely to be available across these three strands, early, mid and late stage. The competition is due to open on the 20th of July 2020 and close on the 21st of October 2020. Project should start by the 1st of April in 2021. We're also holding 3 collaboration webinars, and the provisional date for these is the 9th of July this year. And these are looking at different themes. So they are looking at crop, livestock and food systems and nutrition. So if you're interested in a project in one of those particular themes, you can join the webinar, find out a little bit more information and hear from a case study, and also have targeted networking with others who are interested in the same theme. And the link on here just gives you the link to the Innovate UK competition page, where the full information will be published at the end of June. If you have any queries, we have a support line, both a phone number and an email address. I'd urge you as well to contact KnowledgeTransfer Network on any specific questions around partnering and collaboration or filling in your application, and also have a look at the Innovate UK website.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Kathryn, for your presentation. Great to hear about the AgriTech Catalyst 10. And I'm sure there'll be many people that are keen to find out a bit more about it and are already thinking about ideas to apply for it. We are now going to hand over to Richard Lamb, who's also from Innovate UK, and will be letting us know a little bit about the knowledge transfer partnerships, which are also running within this programme. So over to you, Richard. Hi everybody, we seem to have some difficulty with the audio for this file, so apologies for that. I think we will have to cut this section out for now, and we will be sending this, we'll have to reschedule this one, or we'll do it on a later date. I don't quite know what's happening with the audio there, but obviously some technical difficulties. So I think what we'll do is go straight to the Q&A, if that's at all possible, and we'll see if we can get anything working by the end of the session. If not, we will have to carry on. Is that okay? So apologies about that, and we'll jump straight into the Q&A. First question. I'll just bring that up. So for the Innovation Awards, you mentioned industrial development trials. Does this mean UK industry partners can also be involved?
Okay, so one for me, Tim.
Yes, is that right, Debbie?
Yeah. From a UK point of view, it is just a research organisation. By all means, industry partners, UK industry partners can get involved. However, no money can really be attributed to them. So very much has to be a UK research organisation, and the full funding has to go through them. I think maybe when we sort of referred to industry, that's sort of from the Africa side of things. That's where that comes from.
Okay, thank you very much, Debbie. Can we go to next question from Martin Cowsill? So apologies for murdering anyone's surnames. I do apologise for that. In what ways would a reliable and affordable supply of electricity help improve the agricultural productivity and profitability? If a mini grid could be established, what sorts of machinery could we also install? I think perhaps that's an open question. I'm not quite sure it fits in with the scope of what we're trying to do. So let me move on from that one.
I can say something briefly, Tim. Just, I think that would be beneficial, and I think there's some projects that we funded around sort of creating more of a reliable storage and sort of cold chain, and having that sort of more constant electricity supply could be of a benefit. But I just wanted to mention the Energy Catalyst. So yes, this is the AgriTech Catalyst, so it's not specifically around energy, but there is actually an Energy Catalyst round 9, which is due to be launched this month as well. And this is about accelerating clean, affordable and secure energy technologies in sub-Saharan Africa and also in South Asia. I can circulate the link for that. There's 11 countries that are prioritised, but it does include Ghana, Malawi, Nigeria, South Africa and a couple of others. So I can circulate that because that might be of interest for people if you're interested in a sort of more of an energy project.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And what a topical one, Kathryn, fresh off the news today, is this funding stream likely to be paused like the SMART competition?
So at the moment, these dates are sort of in the programme as being the provisional open and close dates. So we don't see them changing at the moment. But obviously, with sort of COVID-19 and the funding that we're delivering, you know, there could potentially be delays as there have been in other competitions. But no, at the moment, that is the planned open date, and it is a while off. We've got about 7 weeks yet. So yeah, that's the planned open date.
Perfect, thank you. One from Steve Chivasa for the AgriTech Catalyst. Is there a minimum threshold the business turnover should have to qualify?
So no, I mean, there isn't a specific restriction on turnover, but there are finance checks that are carried out before funding is awarded to look at whether the project is affordable for the business. So as I mentioned in the presentation, companies aren't supported 100%. They need to provide up to 75% of the funding, depending on the stage of research that they're applying for. So there are various checks that are done to ensure that the business can afford to actually do that and run the project.
Okay. One for Debbie from Steve Javasa. Can you concurrently hold AgriFood Innovation Awards and apply for AgriTech Catalyst Round 10? Or
Yeah.
Kathryn?
Sorry,
So,
say that again.
can you concurrently hold, so can you have an AgriFood Innovation Award and also apply for the AgriTech Catalyst Round 10?
I'll see what Kathryn thinks about this, but certainly the Innovation Awards are deemed to be pump priming. So our thoughts are to smaller projects that can grow in size and then move on to further funding the likes of AgriTech Catalyst. But Kathryn, what would you say to that?
Yeah, no, that's right. But I mean, there isn't anything against anything that stops you as a business or an academic organisation having both an innovation award and an AgriTech Catalyst project potentially in the same area. It could be, in the same field, but a different project. The thing that you obviously can't do is access funding twice. You need to access funding for one project and then access funding through a different route for the other one. But no, you can sort of hold multiple projects.
Great. Kathryn, would you be able to go through the target themes under the call again? This is like a pop quiz. How much information? We can go back to your slides.
Yeah, so the scope of the catalyst is really broad. I mean, the themes that I think you're potentially asking about are livestock, crop, and food systems and nutrition. The reason we've split the webinars into those three themes is just to basically allow people who are interested in a particular area to be able to network with people who are also interested in that area. So they're just broad themes that we've set up for the webinars. But in terms of the scope, it covers anything from primary production all the way through to the consumer effectively. So it would cover all the way up to storage, distribution, packaging, all the way through to that final consumer. So it really is across the whole food supply chain.
Excellent, thank you. One perhaps for Debbie and sort of how the KTN works in terms of partnering organisations up. But if you're an African company looking to find a UK partner, do you provide matching support? I'm sure, some of the things we're doing this week would help, but Debbie,
yeah, absolutely. No, we do. Certainly, we've got quite a good network as it stands, but we can sort of reach out to other organisations as well. But what I would say is that we've got the meeting mojo that's going on this week is absolutely perfect. It's just brilliant to see actually all the messages that are coming up about potential partnerships, what people are looking for, and that's exactly what the next 3 weeks are all about, just to encourage that. So the meeting mojo will help that. Individually, the managers at KTN can assist, so just please by all means contact the GCRF Africa email probably in the first instance. But we do actually have a LinkedIn group as well, which I think we'll share the link for that as well, which is primarily AgriTech Catalyst funding, but there's a really good community on that. And again, it's quite a good area to post what you're interested in or what you're looking for. So it's sort of short answer, yep, absolutely, that's what we're here to help you with.
Kathryn, one for you. So regarding the industries from the Africa end, what size of company are you looking at? How is the application initiated? Is it from a Africa university, industries, or from the UK university?
So the African business can be a small, medium or large organisation. So it's quite broad in terms of the size that we're looking for. In terms of the application, so the AgriTech Catalyst projects work on a hub and spoke model. So you need to have a UK administrative lead who will start the application online on the Innovation Funding Service. So you need to have that UK admin lead. But if you are an African business or an African university and you have an idea where you think you have a good project idea for the AgriTech Catalyst, by all means you can initiate that idea. And through this week, if you can find a UK partner, that would be great. Meeting Mojo will enable you to have meetings with UK partners, and there's the UK AgriTech centres that also might be useful for you to talk to. So really, the project has to be sort of administrated from the UK side, but in terms of forming that collaboration and the project idea, that can be initiated from, as you say, the UK business or university or the African business or university.
That's great. Thank you, Kathryn. One that came through this morning, actually, so I'm pleased that we can pick that up now, is from Jules Ferrer. Do institutes with public sector research establishment status qualify for 100% project costs?
Yes, I believe they do. I will just double check, but yeah, I believe they do. I'll come back to you and confirm.
And just for everybody listening, I know I am dismissing some questions. I'm just trying to answer questions. If we have comments, we will try to follow those up in due course. So please don't feel ignored. But we're trying to just get through as many questions as we can in the short time that we have.
Tim, can I just answer? I know there was a question earlier on, and it was actually for Ben, who presented his Innovation Award project. So somebody had asked whether or not his cassava bags were reusable. So it was just to let you know they absolutely are. They're made from polypropylene, so very durable. They think that they would last at least 20 plus uses, but they do need field testing. So hopefully that was a good answer for the person that posted that.
Yeah, and I know somebody was commenting that they had, they could maybe connect Ben up with some people working in the Gary industry. So we will follow that up as well.
Indeed, thanks.
And so someone from John West is just asking, there's again a technical question, Kathryn. Only 2 sides of space allowed in the previous round in terms of the appendix. Is it possible to allow more pages?
Yes, thank you for that question. And I was reviewing the documents on Friday last week, and that was one of the things we've changed. So yes, for AgriTech Catalyst round 9, there was an error, and we only allowed collaboration agreements up to a maximum of 2 pages, and that is not sufficient for a collaboration agreement. So that's been extended. So yes, that's been fixed.
Oh, I know I'm sure that was a deliberate mistake, Kathryn. We're just testing the audience.
Less to read.
This is a question from Blessing towards yourself, Kathryn. Does an administrative lead have to be a UK university knowledge base, or can a UK-based company, or can be a UK-based company? Sorry, I mangled that question. Does that make sense, Kathryn, or should I read it again?
Yes. So the UK administrative lead for early stage projects can be a UK academic or a UK business. And the same applies for industrial research projects as well. For late stage experimental development projects, these are more business to business projects. So the administrative lead would need to be a UK business.
And one from Phil Gaffney at Ecosystem. So he's working with University of Greenwich, Africa Rice, and we are a mid-stage small SME. Am I right that the max that our 2 tech partners is 50% of total?
In terms of the amount of funding, so the rules around the 50% funding are more around the academic side. So if I understand this correctly, you're asking whether 2 companies, the maximum can have 50% of the project costs. It's actually the minimum. So the maximum that the research organisations can have of the project is 50%. So if you wanted to have 70% of the costs going to the businesses and 30% to the academic partners, that's absolutely fine. But you couldn't have it the other way around, with 70% of the cost to the academic and only 30% to the business.
Thank you.
If that makes sense.
Another AgriTech Catalyst one. Will the application form questions be the same as previous rounds, so round 9?
Yes, they will be the same. There may be some slight tweaks in the wording, but essentially they'll be the same 11 questions as we had for round 9.
In the first report, there was mention of involvement of master's students. Are there any studentships available as part of the funding? Debbie, do you know the answer to that one?
Tim, you might be a bit closer to
Yeah. I was just thinking that. These are PhD studentships, you know, and they are administered through the PIP program. So that's how we are doing that. However, if you are a master's student and you are interested, then it might be worth sending us an email and perhaps we can consider it. But at the moment, we are considering PhD students only. But there may be some fantastic master's students out there. I'm sure there are. So if that's something you're interested in, just send us an email and maybe. I see Richard has joined us. Great. I apologise, Richard. We had Richard Lamb, and I apologise that your presentation hasn't worked. We tested as much as we could, but
I've been here all the time, and I can do it live for you if you like.
That's very kind of you. I think perhaps we'll try and reschedule if possible, just so that we can make sure it all works properly and do the best for our members, if that's okay. And then we can also factor in questions. We do have some availability later on, so we'll make sure we get that done. But apologies to everybody. This is a new virtual mission for us, in the sense that we would normally be in person. We expected a few hiccups. Unfortunately, this is one of them. We did test as much as we could, but unfortunately, that's where we are at the moment. So let me just crack on with a few more questions before we finish for today. So with respect to UK partners, are there any limitations on the type of partner? I presume that's to do with the AgriTech Catalyst. That's from Clint.
Yeah, so for the AgriTech Catalyst, the UK partners, you have to have a business in your consortium, and you have to have a UK-based partner as well. But that could be a business, it could be a research organisation or a university. Charities and NGOs and public sector organisations can also be involved. And there's a full list. You can look at the AgriTech Catalyst competition round 9 for info, but the full list will again be in round 10 when that's published as well.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. I'm just looking at the time, and I'm thinking, Richard, did you want to present now? Would that put you under a lot of pressure?
No, I'll give it a go.
Would you like me to do the slides for you, and then you can talk through them?
Yeah, okay. This is slightly more off the cuff than planned, but if people will bear with us.
We want to give people what they've come for, hey.
Okay, so hello there. My name's Richard Lamb. I'm the KTP Program Manager at Innovate UK, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about our KTP Africa food funding. So next slide, please. So as you've already heard, there's a whole program of other work going on, so I won't dwell on this, and we'll go straight on to the next slide. So KTPs have been around in the UK for 45 years, and how they work is that a research organisation or university talk to a business, or a business talks to a university, and they're discussing the challenges that the business is facing. So the business normally says, I've got a problem, I don't know how to fix it. The university says, well, we could fix it, but how are you going to pay for it? And that's where KTP can help. KTP can help spread or share some of those costs. And that's how it works in the UK. So we help by putting in place a knowledge transfer advisor that can quickly triage and tell you whether or not this is a KTP. If it is a KTP, they'll be there to help and support the application process, and if it's approved, they'll be there to see the project all the way through to its end as a project management officer. If the funding is approved, you recruit an associate, and that associate is a graduate or someone skilled in the particular knowledge transfer area that you're interested in, and they act as that conduit between the university and the business to draw that information through. So a unique feature of KTP is that the associate is employed by the university but sits in the business, and that's what makes KTP a bit special. Now, in Africa, we've got 4 target countries for our pilot, and I'll tell you which ones they are in a moment, but this is the model that we have evolved. So it's very similar to the model that we run here in the UK. The key difference is in the KTP Africa model, we have a UK university that is partnering with a university in one of our pilot countries, which is in turn partnering with a business. So we want the knowledge transfer to flow between all of those different organisations. So to make the project work, you need a UK university, a university or researching organisation in the host country who is working with a business in that host country. We will, of course, put knowledge transfer advisors in place. Now we have them here in the UK who are going to work with advisors that we are going to put into those host countries. That's being done off the back of another project, but we're taking advantage of that. So our target countries are Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa. So for example, if you're a South African business, find a South African university, partner with a UK university, and you've got the makings of a project. We've got about £6 million to spend across 4 years. We're looking to fund 24 projects, and we've had the first applications in already, and we are currently reviewing those. And we had hoped they might start by 2020, the end of this year, but of course this COVID virus has slightly gotten in the way of that, but we will hopefully start as soon as it is safe and reasonable to do so. So what we're really looking at are projects of about 24 months in duration. There's £250,000 budget roughly available for each of those, or for the project, and that is split but 50-50 between the UK and African partners. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. So the scope is all based on the AgriTech Catalyst competition. You can find out more on that web link. But basically, there's a whole range of different projects and areas which we are interested in. It's easier to say what we're not funding, and that's forestry or ornamentals, wild capture fisheries, equine, or crops for energy production. If you have a good project or a project idea, what we do is we do a fact find form first to sense check your submission before you commit to writing the full application. So a little step just to make sure that what you're thinking about fits the criteria that we're willing to fund. Next slide. So essentially, there's £125,000 to spend in the UK and in Africa. Obviously, the cost basis is slightly different. But the most important thing, I think, is that we're putting in place a really good budget and a framework that we know works, and the budget will allow the academics from the UK to go to the host countries, but also the academics and the businesses from the host countries to come to the UK. We would like the associate as well to participate in the same KTP training that we give our associates here in the UK. So we're budgeting for them to come over to the UK and participate in our 2-week management training course as well. So there's an awful lot there for both sides of the funding equation. They are fully funded, so we're not looking for the business to put any money into this other than any in-kind contribution in time. Of course, they might wish to put some money in for a specific investment that they might have to make into their business operation, or indeed for some consumables or something that are an essential part of the project. But all of that we can go into if you've got a good idea and it sounds like it might be a KTP. So the African business, okay, so this is a submission process. So you would do the fact find form, that would go to one of the country leads, and I'll give you their details in a moment or two. If that's okay, then you go on to prepare the full proposal. If that's okay, working with the country lead, you develop the submission, it goes into the KTP competition. Any KTP competition for the time being can be submitted into. We review it along with all the other KTPs that we fund, and hopefully at the end of that process, you'll get approved and you'll get an offer letter. And at that point, you can then start the recruitment for your associate. All the way through this, you're supported not only by a UK team, but by a growing team based in Africa and our host countries as well. And that's why we've chosen those 4 host countries, because that's where our support network is going to be based. Next slide. So that's roughly the delivery model. So the UK universities, the fund holder and allocator, the African university and the associate deliver the tactical elements of this and the scientific knowledge in partnership with the UK university, and the African business then hosts the associate and benefits from the knowledge transfer project. So next slide. These are the Knowledge Transfer Network KTN team that have been working on the agri-food KTPs, and to be quite honest, these are the people that know more about it and the minutiae of it than I do. So if you have a question about whether or not you're eligible, one of these guys is the absolutely right first place to get to. If you're not quick enough to write down all of their names, by all means contact me and I'll put you in touch with them. But we've got Ian Blakemore and Jerry O'Hagan looking after South Africa, Ken Frame looking after Nigeria, Joel Ferguson looking after Kenya, and John Clayton, whose slides I have stolen to do this presentation, he's looking after Ghana. There was also another guy on there, Niju, and he's setting up KTP Africa, or sorry, KTN in Africa, whose network we are piggybacking off. So they're the people to talk who can help you develop your applications, and who will tell you fairly quickly if you think you've got an idea whether or not it meets the criteria for an KTP Agri-Food Africa project. Thank you very much.
That was excellent. Thank you very much for that, Richard. I'm very pleased that we could able to deliver that to our members. So thank you for letting us rush you through that. I appreciate that.
That's all right.
It's now the official end of the session. I did promise at 5:02, so if you need to go, you're welcome to. But I wondered if Richard would stick around for 5 minutes just to answer a couple of questions.
No problem.
For the rest of the panelists. So I'll jump to that. But if you need to go, then do please leave, and this recording will be available later. Richard, is it likely that this KTP competition will be extended to other African countries?
If we were fortunate enough to get some more money, then I think if we can also extend the KTN support network to other countries, it's something we would certainly look at. But for the time being, and for this particular pot of money, it's those 4 countries.
Okay, thank you. And that will answer the question about it being available for Zimbabwe. The short answer is no, not at the moment, and there's no immediate plans for that. Can a commercial company in the UK apply as well for KTP?
Not under this funding scheme, no, but by all means come talk to us about a KTP from our UK funding.
From Xingmang Shu, sorry to massacre your name, can UK research organisations be KTP grant holders?
They would. I'm not quite sure what that question means, but the grant for KTP is funneled through the UK university or research organisation. Okay.
I think that's probably one last question, if that's okay, and then we'll all finish. So some American multinational companies have a strong presence in Africa. Would these still be eligible for the KTP?
I think our focus is more on SMEs, but they are not excluded. We will look at working with any company that is registered in our host countries.
Thank you. Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
Can I just add on to that, sorry, the scope is to, part of the aim of the KTPs and sort of the programme as a whole is to benefit smallholders in the African country. So, so yeah, as Richard said, that they wouldn't be excluded, but they might find it more difficult to sort of show that benefit. So it just sort of depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not excluded.
Great. Well, thank you very much, everybody, and apologies for those technical issues. Hopefully that's the last of them. We've got everything out of our system. We'll be reconvening tomorrow morning, so if you want to join us then, you're very welcome. We have some exciting speakers lined up, as we do for the rest of the week. So thanks again for the panelists. This is where we give you a virtual round of applause. Thank you very much for hosting and speaking and answering all those questions so well. And we will follow up any questions that we haven't managed to answer live. So thank you, everybody. And it's goodbye from me until tomorrow morning. Thank you and bye.